Hey everyone, this is Nina with Walla Stamping. Thank you so much for joining me today and watching my video. This is the project that I would like to share with you, and it is just a very simple red and white Christmas card. I did add some Candy Cane Lane designer series paper here just to give it a little more texture and interest, as well as a piece of cherry cobbler ribbon. And then on the inside of the card I put a sentiment and some rhinestones, and then like a little banner tab here. The stamp set that I used for this is the Star of Light stamp set, and there are actually 21 stamps in this set. That is a bunch. And there's all kinds of different sentiments, as well as some very pretty decorative stamps in there as well. So that's what I used to stamp this. And then of course I put some rhinestones on there as well. For the stamp on the outside, the Be Joyful, I used the Merriest Wishes stamp set. I just really love the font on this Be Joyful, and I actually really enjoy using all of these stamps. But for today, this is the stamp that I decided to use. So let me bring in everything that you're going to need to make this card, and it is quite a few pieces of cardstock. Now the first piece you'll need is Whisper White, and it is cut to 10 by 7 inches, and all you're going to have to do with that is just fold it in half to form your card, or you can score it on the 5-inch mark and fold it in half. You'll need another piece that is 6.5 by 4.5, another piece that is 6 by, wait a minute, I don't think that's 6 inches. Yes, it is. Okay, so 6 inches by 1 3/4, a piece that is 3 by 2, and then one last piece that is 3 3/4 by 5/8 inch. Then for the cherry cobbler, you'll need a piece that is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, a second piece that is 6 1/4 by 4 1/4, a third piece that is 3 1/4 by 2 1/4, and then your designer series paper, which is the Candy Cane Lane, needs to be 5 3/4 by 1 1/2. Then there's just a few other pieces that you'll need for the inside of the card. It's your Whisper White, and this is cut at 3 3/4 by 2 1/4, and then your cherry cobbler is cut at 4 by 2 1/2, as well as 2 1/4 by 5/8. So this is all of the cardstock that is needed to create this card. So let me set this aside and go ahead and get started creating this card for you. So I'm just going to bring in my trimmer to score this card. I'm going to move the cutting blade out of the way, line this edge up on the 5-inch mark, and score it with my scoring blade. Move that aside. Okay, then we'll just fold this in half, make sure that the corners are lined up nicely, and then I'm going to burnish this score line and get a nice sharp edge on that. Okay, so this is the card base. The next thing you're going to do is take your largest piece of cherry cobbler, and I'm just going to use wet glue today. I have run out of my snail, which is probably what I would use otherwise, but since I am out of it, I'm just going to use wet glue. So let's put this first piece down and just try to get it centered up so that the white cardstock beneath it has an even border all the way around. Then we're going to take the next piece, which is Whisper White. I'm going to put glue on the back of this and adhere it down on top of that cherry cobbler. And again, just get it centered up as neatly as possible. Okay, then one more piece of cherry cobbler for this stack. All right, and let's put that on top. Then we will put this in place, and our designer series paper goes on top of that. So let me go ahead and get the designer series paper and see, isn't that back cute as well? But for this card, I just decided to go with this stripe instead. I love this pattern, but I feel like it's a little more whimsical, and I wanted a card that was just a little more straightforward. So that's why I chose the stripe instead of that sweet pattern that's on the back. So that's going to go there. And guys, this card really is not going to take long to put together at all. Then we're going to line this up, but it's going to be toward the left-hand side. And I just tried to keep this border here the same to the edge of this white as repeated out through here, okay? The next piece is this small one, and what we need to do here, let me grab my scissors, is see how on this card I have this little banner, and the way that I do this is I just snip up through the middle of this piece of paper, then I start out at this corner and clip up to where that first cut line ends. I've got glue on me, sorry, and then repeat that process on this side. Then turn it over and do the same thing here. Just cut up the middle, start at that corner and cut in, start at this corner and cut in, and then just cut those little pieces out, and that'll make your banner. So let's get this stuck in place. And I just put this about on the top third of the card and just center it up just like that. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and build this part. But before I do that, I'm going to stamp this. So let me bring in a piece of scrap paper and get that stamped. And I hope to goodness that I get it stamped right the first time so that I do not have to redo it. So, well, let me show you what I'm using here. This is the Cherry Cobbler stamp pad, and that is what I'm using to coordinate with the Cherry Cobbler paper in this card. So I'm going to get that inked up. And actually, I'm going to use the lines on this notebook paper to try to make sure I get this straight. Now, I'm going to put this on the lower half of the card because there is ribbon that's going to go on above it. Okay, that turned out fine. Alrighty, so let's move that out of the way. Now, I'm going to give that a little shake just to make sure that that ink is dry before I handle it so that I don't smudge. Alright, so let's go ahead and get some glue on the back of this and then stick it down to our Cherry Cobbler. And you can do this card in any color you want. It doesn't have to be red and white. You could do red and green or green and white or whatever you like yourself. Now let me get my ribbon. And what I did here was I just wrapped this piece of ribbon around and I just tied a bow on top. So let's just, well actually no, I didn't tie a bow. I take that back. I just tied it in a knot. And of course, like I said, this is your card. So if you would rather have a bow on there, you certainly can. But I'm just going to tie mine in a knot, just like that. Get that good and tight, and then snip off the excess. There, right there. All right, let's move this out of the way. Then I use dimensionals, and let me grab those real quick. I don't have them right here beside me. I'm going to use 5. All right, so let's get this put in place right there. Okay, so the outside of your card is done, and what did that take, like 3 minutes? Not long at all. Let's go ahead and bring in the pieces for the inside of the card. I'm going to open that one so I'll have reference. So let me bring this back in and do my stamping. And this, if you've watched any of my previous tutorials, you've seen me do this. Whenever I'm going to stamp a pattern using more than one stamp in a set, then I take them out of my container and I lay the stamp loose on top of my piece of paper where I know that I want my stamp to be and what I want it to look like. And then I put my acrylic block on top of it and pick the stamps up, because the back of these will stick to this block. So that way when I get ready to stamp, I can do it all at one time and not have to stamp each thing individually. So that's just the way that I like to do it. You may have a preference of doing all of yours separate, and if that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. But this is just my preference for me. So let me get some ink on there. Make sure my stamp is going the right way. Get it centered up there. Stamp. Then I give it a good little bit of pressure, since I do have several stamps that I'm trying to adhere or trying to ink on that piece of paper. Alright, get my cherry cobbler out of the way. I'm going to give that just a second to get dry. Matter of fact, I'm going to shake it a little bit. I don't know how many of you guys might remember this, but Polaroid cameras. Today everything is digital, and if you're under the age of probably 40, you're going to be thinking, what in the world is a Polaroid? Well, when I was a kid, when you would take a photograph, you actually photographed onto real photography paper, which was in the pack that you put in your camera, and you would snap the photo. Your photo would come out the bottom of your camera, and I don't know why people did this, but they would shake it to make the image appear on the photo. I don't know why we did that, but we did. So anyways, that's a little nostalgic trivia information for you. But I loved having my Polaroid camera when I was little, and it was just instant. You'd take that photograph, and I don't know, a minute or so later, your picture was done and you had it right there, which it's just as instant today. You take a digital picture and it's there. So let's put the rhinestones on now, and I'm just going to use some of these little small ones, and they're stuck together. So I'm going to take my scissors to pull each one of those apart. It's like they're on a little band of adhesive, which is smart because then they stay together and they don't get loose and get lost. So I just put one in the center of each of those little stars and make that kind of decorative. Put me a little bit of glue on the back of this, put it toward the top so that if I want to handwrite a note in there, I can. Take this little strip, line it up underneath that star, and stick it down. Oopsie, I slid it. Let me get it back in place. Okay, so there it is. There is your card, and it is all done and ready to be given to whoever you choose to give it to. This is a very simple red and white card, and I hope that you have enjoyed the video today. Now, what I'd like to ask for you to do is click on the link below that will take you to my blog and leave a comment, and I will draw a name in the next week or so and send out a pre-cut kit of all of the pieces needed to make this card. So all you have to do is put it together. So if you would like to get in touch with me otherwise, you could reach me at wallastamping@gmail.com. And I appreciate you watching the video today, and I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.